Every time an expansion gets revealed, there's always going to be a few cards that look really good but see absolutely no play. Goro the Might Tree is one of these cards. Released in the Descent of Dragons expansion, Goro's battle cry would make it so the Treants had +1/+1 for the rest of the game. The problem with this card is that Treant Druid has never really been a thing in the meta. Even when it has support like Dendrologist and Boltzmuncher, it just wasn't enough to push it into the mainstream. The other big issue is that you had to wait or ramp into 7 mana, which back then wasn't as easy as it is now. Another card from Descent of Dragons that saw no play was Sunvala, a 3-mana 2/5 elemental with the effect, after you cast 3 spells in a turn, summon a 5/5 elemental. On paper this sounds great, but you need to remember that back then in Descent there wasn't that many good cheat spells you could run to proc the effect. Most of the time you'd have to run Sorcerer's Apprentice to get mana cheat for it to work. The other big issue is the fact that in Descent, it was a very aggro-centered meta, which made this card virtually unplayable. Moving on to Ashes of Outland, we have a card that was used in extremely niche off-meta decks, and that card is Beastmaster Lerox with the battle cry, summon 3 beasts from your hand. Now this card seems great as is, but imagine trying to play this card when Demon Hunter just got released. It was used in very few OTK decks with King Crush, but other than that, it saw no play. Speaking of Demon Hunter, here's an example of a card that I think is absolutely insane, but is in the wrong class. Nethrandamus is a 9-mana 8/8 dragon which has the battle cry, summon 2 random 0-cost minions, and it upgrades every time a friendly minion dies. The reason I say this is in the wrong class is because Demon Hunter doesn't need this to kill you. They can just burst you down with infinite damage and kill you by turn 6, so there's no reason to run this unless you're going for achievements. Going over to Rogue, we have Ghastly Gravedigger, a 3-mana 4/3 with the battle cry. If you control a secret, choose a card in your opponent's hand to shuffle back into their deck. The reason this card saw no play was because Secret Rogue just wasn't good at the time this was released. And with Miracle Rogue taking over the meta, there's no reason to play Secrets over Miracle. Now looking at the latest class in the game, the Death Knight. Although it isn't the best in the meta game right now, it still has many good cards. One card that isn't seeing any play is Blightfang, a 3-mana 3/4 beast with the battle cry, infect all enemy minions. When they die, you summon a 2/2 zombie with taunt. The reason the card isn't played is because anti-aggro just isn't good in the meta right now, and if you are playing Unholy Death Knight in Wild, you are running even, and this is odd cost. Now we're going to look at the worst performing class in the most recent meta, Warrior. The card that everyone agrees is good, but sees no play, is Disruptive Spellbreaker. Its effect is, at the end of your turn, your opponent discards a spell. This card would be an absolute monster if Warrior wasn't bad right now. Maybe if Control Warrior comes back, it will see play. Now we're going to be looking at Shaman with Voyage to the Sunken City. We have a card that saw very niche play in Wild, but never in Standard. Radiance of Ashara is a 3-mana 3/4 that has the text, Fire Spell Damage +2, your nature spells cost 1 less, and after you cast this Frost spell, gain 3 armor. The only reason that it didn't see play in Standard was because there just wasn't enough spells to support it, unlike in Wild, where you basically have an infinite number of spells to choose from. Moving on to Paladin, here's a card that's great, but is unfortunately never played. High Exarch Yrel is an 8-mana 7/5 with the battle cry. If your deck has no neutral cards, gain Rush, Lifesteal, Taunt, and Divine Shield. This card came out during the Madness at the Darkmoon Fair expansion, and the reason it didn't see play was because a deck that would run it, Pure Paladin, didn't need this card when it was released. Pure Paladin had much better options for healing than Yrel, so it saw no play. Luminous Geode is a card from the Fraction and Alterac Valley expansion. On paper, it seems to be busted, but the problem with the card is that it just didn't fit into any deck archetype with Priest, and still hasn't found any deck to go into. For the final card of the video, I want to highlight one of my favorite cards that saw 0 play. Valja's Felgorge is a 7-mana 4/4 with the battle cry, increase your maximum hand size to 12, draw 4 cards. This is another example of a card that is great but doesn't fit into any deck archetype. Warlock doesn't struggle with draw, and 7 mana is a lot for something that doesn't immediately impact the board, and proper handlock support came after it rotated. Let me know in the comments if I missed any cards in this video, and if you enjoyed, go ahead and give this video a like and maybe even subscribe, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. See ya.